The sum of two consecutive integers is 172.
When we're thinking about integers, the reason why I set it up this way is integers are exact numbers, and consecutive integers are integers that come one after another. So if we're talking about 7, then the next number after it is 8. Notice what happens here. If this is our first one, right, which we don't know what this one is, right? It's kind of a mystery number, but the relationship to get from this one to this one is we just add 1 to that, right? And with this one, we just add, oh, this would be 13 and 14, so we'd add 1 to get to that one. So that's why we have our first one, which is x, and our other one is just that mystery number with 1 added to it. And so it said the sum of these two. So we have our x, which is here, our x plus 1 is here, so we're doing the sum of those two equals that 173. So x plus x is 2x plus 1 is 173. Then we're going to minus our 1 on both sides, because we always do the opposite, and cancels that away. We get 2x, and this equals 172. So then we just divide both sides by 2. And so then we found out that x equals 86. And so that's what our first one is. And so the one consecutively after that would be 87.
The distance around a triangle is 40 centimeters. If two sides are equal and the length of the third side is 14 centimeters, what is the length of each of the two other 50 sides?
So we get two sides that are of equal length. We just don't know what they are, right? Our third side is 14, and it says the distance around this triangle is 40. The distance around an object is called its perimeter, right? So basically what we're doing is we're adding up all these, and it should be equal to 40. So x plus 14 equals 40. Now we have two of these x's. And so then we can minus this 14 on both sides to get rid of it, because we're adding that. We always do the opposite. And so we get 2x equals 26. Then we divide both sides by 2 and find out that each one of those sides equals 13.
The area of a trapezoid is 133 centimeters squared. The height is 14 centimeters, and the length of one of the parallel sides is 9 centimeters. Find the length of the second parallel side. Express your answer as a simplified fraction or a decimal rounded to 2 places. Now, anytime you see something lit up with blue lettering right here, that means you can click on it and actually see what the formula is. It'll give you some information. But this is a good formula to help us solve this. We know that our area is going to plug in where our A is. We already got a half. Our 14 is going to plug in where our height is. And this is one of the parallel sides, which is what B and C are, right? So one of these 9 is going to plug in where this B is.
So we've got it plugged in. And so we can start this problem by just doing half of 14. So half of 14 is 7. And then you might be tempted to distribute that 7 into here. But it'd be easier just to divide it out of both sides. If we divide it, both sides by 7, it cancels away on this side. Sorry, it's supposed to be 133. 133 divided by 7 is 19. And so then we just have 9 plus c left. And so then we minus 9. Oh, minus 9. And so then we get 10 left. So that's our third side.
Total cost of a jacket and a pair of shoes was $91.43. And the price of the jacket was $7.65 less than the pair of shoes. What was the price of the jacket? Express the answer as a simplified fraction or a decimal rounded to 2 places.
So here's the information we have, right? It says that the jacket was $7.65 less than. When you use less than, it actually makes us put whatever number they're talking about at the end, and it means that it's being subtracted. Less than the shoes, which was what we've assigned our x to be. Now, when we buy two things, we're adding those together. So we're going to start with our jacket, which is x minus 765, and we're adding that to the price of the shoes. And this is going to be equal to our 91.43. Now, x plus x is 2x. We still got our minus 765. So then we're just going to take our 765 and add it on both sides. Cancel away here. We got 2x. And this equals 9908. And we're just going to divide that. And we get 49.4. And so this is the price of the shoes, but we were actually looking for the price of the jacket, which means that we need a minus 765, and that gives us 41. Set up the equation for the following word problem and solve the equation. Let y be an unknown number. Negative 43 times the number minus 50 is equal to 72 less than the number. So we're going to write this. I'm not going to put this on paper first. We're just going to say it's negative 43y, and this is minus 50. This is going to be equal to 72 less than the number. So we're starting out with the number, which is y, and then we're doing minus 50. So that's how we set up this equation. So it says solve for the equation for y. Express your answer as an integer, reduced fraction, or a decimal number rounded to 2 places. So this is what our equation was that we put in. And so all we're going to do is just add the 43y to the other side. I like to keep my variables positive, at least my coefficients in front of my variables positive. So we do left with negative 50 equals 44y minus 72. And so then I'm going to add 72 to both sides. And so once we do the math on that, that's just going to be 22 equals 44y. And so then I'm going to divide both sides by 44. Cancel away on here, so I'm just left with my y. And if I reduce this fraction, divide them both by 22, I get 1 over 2. 11 more than 5 times a number is equal to the difference between negative 5 and 3 times the number. Fine. We have 11 more than 5 times the number, and that is equal to the difference between negative 5 and 3 times the number. So first thing I'm going to do is add my 3x to this side. Okay, cancels away there, so we get 8x plus 11 equal to negative 5. Then I'm going to subtract my 11. So that gives me negative 16 on that side. That cancels away, which leaves just the 8x. So then I divide both sides by 8. And negative 16 divided by 8 is negative 2. The sum of 3 consecutive even integers is negative 1 over 8. Find the 3 integers. When we're dealing with even integers, right, this is like 4, 6, and 8. These are consecutive. They come one after another, and they're only even. We're ignoring the odds, right? So you can imagine that to get from this one to this one, we had to add 2. And since we're setting this up as our first unknown, it's always in relationship to this one. So how much do we have to add to get from here to here? Well, we had to add 4 to get. So that's why we're calling this one n. This one is n plus 2, and this one is n plus 4. And so that's how we're plugging this in. So it says the sum of these numbers equals negative 108. So we have our first one, our second one, and our third one here. So we're doing n plus n plus n. That gives us 3n. And then 2 plus 4 is 6, and this equals negative 08. And so then we minus 6, minus 6. These two negatives make for a bigger negative. So that gives us a negative 114. And then we're going to divide both sides by 3. And that tells us that n is negative 38. Right? Okay, so that's what our first one is, because that's what n is. And now we're going to add 2 to get to the next one. Now, if you're adding 2, you might think, oh, that's 40, but this is negative, so it actually goes in reverse. So this actually is a negative 36. And if we add 4 to this one, this is a negative 34.
On average, the number of electronic keyboards sold in
California
each year is equivalent to 8 times the average number sold yearly in Delaware. If on average there are 85,104 electronic keyboards sold each year,
California
how many are sold in Delaware? Okay.
So we have California here, which is, our expression is 8D, because there's 8 times as many sold there as in Delaware. Delaware is our D. And so the information it said is that California, that's how many are sold there. So if we just solve this out, we're going to solve for D. So we can just divide both sides by 8. That by 8. And so we find out that 10,638.
If the third of 3 consecutive integers is subtracted from 138, the result of the sum of the first and second, what are the integers?
Remember, our integers come one after another. Here's our first one. We're going to add 1 to get the next one. Add 2 to get from the first to the third. Okay, so it said that our third one is subtracted from 138, and then that equals the sum of the first and the second, which is what we have. There's first and second. So the first thing we're going to do is distribute this negative to both of these. A lot of people forget to put this in parentheses and distribute that. That's the reason why we do it wrong. So just make sure you do that. And so then I can add my ends together. That's going to give me 2n plus 1. We could subtract here, so that gives me 136 minus n equals 2n plus 1. So then I can add my n here, that cancels. Then subtract my 1, and subtract my 1 here. So I'm going to get 135 is equal to 3n, and then I'm just going to divide both sides by 3. And so that gives me that my n is 40. And so that's what our first one is, so it's 45, which means our second one is 46, and our third one is 46.
The Brady family received 35 pieces of mail on October 24th. The mail consisted of bills, magazines, letters, and ads. How many bills did they receive if they received 3 more magazines than letters, the same number of bills as letters, and 5 more ads than magazines?
So here's what we've had. I've decided that I don't know what variable I'm going to use. So I'm just going to label everything with the letter that it starts with, and then kind of just derive with the information I get. Okay. So the first statement that it gave us, it said that there was 3 more magazines than letters, right? So whatever the magazines was, for the magazines, we had 3 more than what what they had at the letters, right? Now, I can get the opposite information out of that. So I could go up here to letters, and so since this was 3 more from the magazines, we're going to subtract 3 to get what our letters was. So we can do the exact opposite. Now, it said it had the same number of bills as letters. So this is the same thing, bills and letters. We could say that letters is the same thing as bills. We also have, since this is the same and this is the same, this is also the same as well. So we can put our M minus 3 on this one as well. Our magazines minus 3. Now, the last statement it gave us was there was 5 more ads than magazines. So if we look at our ads, we can say that this was the magazines plus 5. And once again, we could say the same thing with our magazines. We could say that this is ads minus 5. Okay. Now I'm just going to look through here and see what letter occurs on every single one. And you're going to spot it pretty quick because magazine shows up on every single one of these. So that's probably my best variable to use. Now remember our total was 35, so we can just add these things up. So my letters was M minus 3. We're going to add that to our ads, which is M plus 5. Add that to our bills, which is M minus 3. Add that to our magazines, which is just M, and that equals 35. Now I can add up my M's, M plus M plus M, that's 4 M's. And then add up my constants, negative 3 plus 5, that is 2, and then 2 minus 3 is negative 1. That equals 35. So then I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So we get 4M equals 36. And then divide both sides by 4. And find out that our magazines is equal to 9. So we can plug it in right here. That means we can plug this in and solve. So 9 minus 3 is 6. And then 9 plus 5 is 14. And then 9 minus 3 is 6. Now this is a lot of different mail. I don't know if I've ever had 9 magazines stuffed into my mailbox. That would be kind of crazy. But how many bills did they receive? And we said that was 6. A classic painting is now selling for $1,000 more than 2 times its original price. If the selling price is now $12,000, what was the painting's original price? That's how we're going to set it up. So it's selling 1,000 more than 2 times its original price. That's the new selling price. So this is going to give us what the original price was. So to solve this, we're going to minus 1,000. Minus 1,000. So that's going to give us 11,000 now. And we're just going to divide this by 2. So now x is going to equal 5. Three sides of a triangle of n, 4n plus 4, and 5n minus 13. If the perimeter of the triangle is 91 centimeters, what is the length of each side? So here's our triangle. One side's n, 4n plus 4, and 5n minus 13. And then the perimeter, which means we're adding all these up, that should be equal to 91. So we're going to do n plus 4n plus 4 plus 5n minus 13 equals 91. So we're going to add up all our n's. n plus 4n is 5n, plus another 5n is 10n. And we're going to add up 4 and negative 13, and that gives us negative 9. It's equal to 91 still, so we're going to add 9 to both sides. Add 9, that gives us 100. That cancels, we get 10n. That means we can divide by 10. Since these two are getting multiplied, we do the opposite and divide. And so 100 divided by 10 is 10. So that means that this one is 10. That means this n is 10, so 4 times 10 is 40. Plus 4 more is 44. And then 5 times 10 is 50. minus 13 is 37. So that's our three sides.
Julie's text message plan costs $10 for the first 700 messages and 10 cents for each additional text message. She owes $30.30 for text messaging in the month of June. How many text messages did she send that month?
Okay, so I've kind of set this up. This is her total bill is this $30.30. This $10 gives us that base of 700 messages, and then for that rest of that money, that's going to be what she spent per message. Okay, so let's do the subtraction on this. So we subtract this and find that it is 20, 30, right? And so this is going to be equal to how much she spent per 10 cents message, right? And so she's getting charged 10 cents per message. This is how many messages she sent. So we're just going to divide this both by 20. And that turns out to be 203. Now remember, she started with 700 because that's what the $10 got her, so we need to add it to that 203 to get our total amount, and so that is 903.
What number gives a result of -4 when 9 is subtracted from the quotient of the number and 5?
7. What number gives the result of -4 when 9 is subtracted from that number, the quotient, which means division, of that number and 5? We can actually add this 9 to both sides. Okay. And that gives us x over 5 is equal to 5. And this x is being divided by 5, so we can just multiply everything times 5. And so 5 times 5 is 25. And these 5's cancel each other away. So that's what x equals.